What is the strangest sacking in Championship history for you?
This is easy. Gary Rowett, Birmingham City, the 16-17
move on?
season. Well, that's it. That's it. Don't need to say anything else.
I don't think you can really assess this Middlesbrough team until after the transfer window.
He was on loan at Luton last season. His first game was that 7-0 defeat at Fulham. But he's a goalkeeper who has been a standout so far this season.
Because otherwise, I don't see Watford challenging for the top two, and their top six place may be up for debate.
I think everybody thought they'd go quite early. It's quite frustrating that the speculation is surrounding them now.
So if I was Vincent Kompany, taking in all those factors into account, I'd be quite happy.
I'd go with Blackpool boss Michael Appleton. I've been surprised by how well they've started the season.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Stopwatch. It's the topical championship show with a little twist. It's 5 topics, a 2-minute timer, and 2 hosts with Ryan and Justin from the Second podcast. Let's get right into it. Justin, with 0 wins from the first 5 games, are you concerned for Middlesbrough?
Concerned, maybe a little bit for what could happen at the end of the season. I think dropping points this early on can harm your sort of push for an automatic place. But overall, I think they've been creating a good amount of chances. Perhaps they've been conceding too many as well and conceding too many goals at that. But I think it will come good for Boro and Wilder. And I think the upcoming game against Swansea is one of those games where it could all click. And it's just one of those things where it just all needs to click at the same time because it's just been doing it at different times. So no, not concerned, but a little bit wary that it could impact what they want, where they want to finish at the end of the season.
Yeah, despite not winning so far, Middlesbrough have been the better team in virtually every game they've played so far, give or take maybe one. They've been playing really, really well. It's just defensively where they've been conceding goals, where you wouldn't expect that with a Chris Wilder team, would you? You wouldn't expect a Chris Wilder team to have conceded the most goals in the division. So it's very strange that that's happened, but that's exactly what we're talking about here. But on the balance of play, they have been the better side. I don't think you can really assess this Middlesbrough team until after the transfer window. They have signed Matt Clark. They have signed Rodrigo Muniz this week. And they could be the pivotal signings that they've been waiting for because Chris Wilder's desperately needed a striker. And he's also been very keen on getting a left-sided centre-half in. So now that they've got this whole team together, it's difficult to pick many weaknesses in it, isn't it?
Well, yeah, spot on. But I think the only concerns I have is just bedding those new players in and how long it can take. We've got a lot of games coming up, and then we have an international break as well. So that's maybe a good time for that to happen. But it just leaves me with a couple of concerns that although they might pick up a couple of wins, I don't think they'll hit full throttle or top gear until sort of mid-October, which by that point may be too late for an automatic promotion push.
Maybe. We've seen it before, though, where teams have started slowly and still go on to win the title. I'm thinking Norwich from 2018-19. So a bad start doesn't necessarily mean your season's over. Justin, what's next topic?
Which player has pleasantly surprised you most this season?
There have been a few. I would go with Robbie Brady at Preston. No, I say him because we all know Robbie Brady's a very good player in terms of his technical ability, but 2 seasons ago, he had a really bad injury, which meant he'd missed most of the season. He got released and then he joined Bournemouth, where he barely played any games. He only played a handful, I think. So here I was thinking, this must be it for Robbie Brady now. His career's winding down. And him going to Preston, I was expecting him to be more of a squad player, really, but he's arguably been Preston's best player so far. Of course, he set up that wonder goal by Brad Potts before, and he's been whipping in crosses like it's nothing. I mean, his delivery is just spectacular. The only issue is the Preston strikers haven't been putting the ball in the back of the net. But in terms of how he's played so far, I don't think you can criticise him at all. He's been really, really good and has been the standout player for Preston so far. This Preston team, which has obviously been brilliant at the back, not scoring many goals, though. But he's been a key player when I thought that was probably just about it for him. So he's really surprised me, Justin. Who would you go for?
I've gone with Matt Ingram in the Hull City goal. I think he's a player who I expected to drop down the pecking order this coming season. They actually brought in Nathan Baxter, who has had injury problems last season, but he took the number 1 shirt from Ingram. But actually, Ingram this season so far has been absolutely superb. He's pulling off save after save after save. And not only that, but he's keeping Hull in games. I know you can make an argument for the West Brom demolition, but actually before that, he's a key reason as to why they've been picking up points. You go to that Norwich game where they won 2-1 at home, and there's a very good reason why they won 2-1 at home, and that's down to Matt Ingram and the amount of saves he made. He's just been absolutely tremendous. And obviously, he was on loan at Luton last season. His first game was that 7-0 defeat at Fulham. But he's a goalkeeper who has been a standout so far this season. Hasn't kept many clean sheets, just the one so far. But the amount of saves he's made has just been astonishing.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same as you, Justin. When they brought in Nathan Baxter, I was fully expecting Baxter to be the number one because every time I saw him playing for Hull, he really impressed me. So it's not a bad thing for Hull, is it, that they've got two goalkeepers who I think are really, really good? Because both of them are better than some goalkeepers who are playing regularly in the Championship. Not naming any names. Justin, after Emmanuel Dennis's departure and Ismaila Sarr and João Pedro also looking likely to be on their way, how will this impact Watford's promotion bid?
It's like driving a car without wheels, isn't it? It's not great. You know, you've got the one wheel left. It's not ideal. I think even in the interim, even if the likes of Sarr and Pedro don't go, the speculation is going to impact those players' not mental state, but their ability to get up for games. It's going to be difficult. But credit to Watford for holding on to them for this long, because I think everybody thought they'd go quite early. It's quite frustrating that the speculation is surrounding them now. We're a few weeks into the season, but for the overall promotion bid, yeah, I think it will impact. Obviously, if these players leave, I know Dennis has gone already, but if Pedro and Sarr go as well, it can massively dent anyone's team if they're going to miss these key players, and their attack changes almost instantly. I know they brought in Keenan Davis and they've got a 18-year-old Asprilla, but it just leaves me with many question marks as to whether or not they can even finish in the playoffs without those three.
The really interesting thing is it looks like Ismaila Sarr might be staying now after his move to Villa fell through, and he's apparently discussing a new contract. But if you had to ask Watford fans which of these three would you least like to keep, I think they'd all say Sarr, not because of him being, the worst player out of those three, the least good out of those players. It's more because he doesn't fit into Rob Edwards' system.
Mm-hmm.
Rob Edwards likes to play with two up front, one player behind him, and two in midfield, which Sarr's an out-and-out winger, isn't he? So they're having to adapt the style of play to fit him in. So it's interesting that he's staying, or looking like he's staying, but how does it affect the team as a whole? It's a massive issue because Watford have relied a lot on their star quality to get them through games. And we've seen it more recently with the likes of Raymond I playing and Bayo as well. They've really struggled in terms of putting away chances, haven't they? And I wouldn't be completely confident with those two as my starting strikers as the season goes on. They've still got Keenan Davis, who is a good player, and I'm looking forward to seeing him in a Watford shirt. And they've also been linked with getting another striker in. Cameron Archer's a name I've seen mentioned. So that's the issue. If they carry on with the strikers they've got right now, that will be a problem. So they either need to hope that Sarr stays or they bring in someone else, don't they? Because otherwise, I don't see Watford challenging for the top two, and their top six place may be up for debate. Justin, what's the next topic?
We've got Rob Edwards, John Dale Thomason, Michael Appleton, Vincent Kompany, Michael Beale, John Eustace, and Ryan Schofield. Which of these new managers? Danny Schofield. Ryan Schofield's the goalkeeper. He's definitely not the manager. Which of these new bosses do you think is happiest at this moment in time?
This was a tricky one because I don't think any of them will be absolutely amazed or really, really happy with how they've done so far. I think they'll all be quite content. But the one who I think would be most content would be Vincent Kompany, which is a bit strange, really, because it's Burnley. We're talking about a team challenging for promotion, and they've only won the one game so far. But when you consider that it's Vincent Kompany who's coaching in this country for the first time, he's trying to implement a completely different style of play. They've signed something like 14 new players this summer. I think he'd be quite happy because despite them only winning the one game, they've actually been playing quite well in just about every single game and would be looking at it thinking we probably deserve more than just the one win. So if I was Vincent Company, taking in all those factors into account, I'd be quite happy with how things have gone so far. It's always going to be a slow building process considering everything I've just mentioned. And I think as season goes on, they will be a strong side. So I would say Vincent Company would be the happiest out of those managers, Justin.
I'd be disappointed if I was Company. I think because they sit 16th now, and the amount of possession they've had and the amount of chances they created out of that possession, I'd be pretty frustrated. And I think that's just down to that. It could be better. I think with Burnley, and I think you're right. They are a side that will improve as the season goes on. But for now, I wouldn't be too happy. I'd just be like, okay, well, this is fine.
So harsh.
I'd go with Blackpool boss Michael Appleton. I've been surprised by how well they've started the season. I go back to the QPR game last week, and they set up perfectly. It was a really good away performance, and they were disciplined throughout the team. They were hardworking at the top end of the pitch when they needed to press. They got Josh Bowler in really good areas to go at QPR and make inroads in behind them. And they have been absolutely superb. And what we were saying at the weekend in our latest episode is Michael Appleton's continued the good work that Neil Critchley did last season. And that's not a difficult thing to do because second season syndrome exists. It's a thing. Teams suffer this quite badly. And Blackpool at the moment look like a team far and away from being sucked into a relegation battle. They've got that balance all over the pitch. Again, they found that, and they got some star quality with the likes of Bowler and Ekpiteta as well. And the forward line of Medine, Lavery, Yates, there's goals there. He's really impressed me, and actually, I'd go as far as say he's probably been out the new manager, probably been the best performing one so far.
Hard to disagree. I think when you look at those managers as well, his appointment was probably the least popular amongst the fan base, and he's done a great job so far. And right now, even though many people are tipping them to be so, I wouldn't say Blackpool are relegation contenders. There's a long way to go, but I just don't have that feeling about them personally. Finally, Justin, it's second tier retro time. This is the part of the show where we look back on the best and worst of the Championship over the years. With Alex Neil facing former side Norwich this weekend, what is the strangest sacking in Championship history for you?
This is easy. Gary Rowett, Birmingham City, the 16-17 season. Well, that's it. That's it. Don't need to say anything else. I think it's more so the fact that Birmingham City have never recovered from that. The ownership has never rebuilt its reputation. I know they tried to with that splurge under Harry Redknapp, but if you consider where Birmingham City were when they sacked Rowett and then appointed Zola, not great and just very, very strange. Gary Rowett was, I wouldn't say a safe pair of hands, but he was at that point a very young and up-and-coming manager. Finished 10th with Birmingham the season before, which, my goodness, Birmingham fans will bite anybody's hands off, any limb off for 10th place. Well, actually, no, for a top half finish, I think. And then for him to be sacked the season after in December with the team sitting just on the precipice of the playoffs, and then for Zola to win 2 games, I think it was, between then and the end of the season. And then for Harry Redknapp to come in and rescue Birmingham City. That's where it all started. That's where the problems started when Gary Rowett was sacked.
Yeah, it's without a doubt the most bizarre sacking ever, isn't it? I think the thing is as well, Gianfranco Zola actually had a fairly decent managerial career prior to that because he took Watford's, you remember the Deeney moment? Mm-hmm. That was Zola in charge. And then this spell as in charge of Birmingham completely destroyed his managerial career because it was so bad. Yeah, he was without a doubt the strangest sacking. But I think an honourable mention has to go to Paul Clement at Derby. Now, Paul Clement isn't, if you ask Swansea and Reading fans, they weren't particularly impressed with him during his time there. But when he was at Derby, he actually had them going very well. Up until the point where he was sacked, they'd only lost 5 games, were 5th in the table, having spent a lot of the season in the top 2, and were only a handful of points off the top 2 still. Yet Derby decided to sack him and bring in the academy manager, Darren Wassell, who did an all right job, but getting rid of a manager who had the team doing well in terms of results. I know there were a few question marks at the time about the style of play, but he was getting results, and the new manager just completely unravelled everything, and Derby lost in the playoffs to Hull. So it was just a really, really strange sacking. And to top it all off, Mel Morris said at the time that it was because he wasn't playing the Derby way. To this day, nobody really knows what the Derby way is. So that has got to be going down as one of the strangest sackings ever. And I think that was also the point where a lot of people started questioning Mel Morris as an owner. And then we all know what happened since. And that wraps it up for season 2, episode 5 of the Stopwatch. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Drop us a like if you enjoyed, and please subscribe for more content like this. We've been the Second Tier Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Second Tier Pod. I'm Ryan Dilks1. This guy over here is Justin Peach 27. And thank you all for watching.